In 2014, social psychologists at the University of Virginia conducted a study that sounds more like a psychological thriller than a scientific experiment. They asked participants to sit in a bare room for 50 minutes. No phone, no books, no windows, no distractions, just their own thoughts. But there was a catch. They were given a device that allowed them to deliver a painful electric shock to their own arm. Before the experiment started, the researchers tested the shock on every participant. Every single person said, "That is painful. I would actually pay money to avoid being shocked again." But once the door was closed and the silence was settled in, 67% of the men and 25% of the women chose to shock themselves rather than just sit there. One man, in a fit of total restlessness, shocked himself 190 times in 15 minutes. Think about the weight of that. Our brains find nothingness so physically agonizing that we will choose actual literal pain just to feel something. We have become a society that treats a gap in our day like a bug in the system that needs to be patched out with a scroll, a swipe, or a notification. We have declared a total war on boredom. We reach for our phones before our eyes even fully open in the morning. We listen to podcasts at 2 times speed while we shower. We scroll TikTok while we wait for the microwave. We are the most overstimulated generation in human history. But what if I told you that by killing boredom, we're actually killing our creativity, our mental health, and our very sense of self? Today, we're going into the science, the history, and the philosophy of why your brain needs to be bored to survive. This isn't just a video about productivity. This is about reclaiming your soul from the noise. To understand why the man shocked himself 190 times, we have to look at the chemistry of the brain. Specifically, we have to talk about dopamine. There's a common misconception that dopamine is the pleasure chemical. It's not. Dopamine is the seeking chemical. It is a neurochemical reward for novelty. In our revolutionary past, this was a survival superpower. If you saw a rustle in the grass, dopamine spiked to make you pay attention. Is it a new food source? Is it a mate? Is it a predator? That spike kept our ancestors alive. But in the modern world, the rustle in the grass is the red notification bubble on your phone. Silicon Valley has engineered every app you use to trigger this exact system. Every time you pull down to refresh a feed, you're pulling the lever on a digital slot machine. Is it a like? A hate comment? A funny meme? Because we do this hundreds of times a day, we have raised our dopamine baseline. Your brain has adjusted to a constant high-frequency fire hose of information. This is where the danger lies. When you have a high dopamine baseline, activities that used to be fulfilling, for example, reading a deep book, watching a sunset, or having a 20-minute conversation, now feel boring. Why? Because they don't provide the high-frequency hits your brain is now addicted to. We aren't bored because life is dull. We are bored because we are chemically overstimulated. We have lost the ability to tolerate the gap, and that gap is exactly where the magic happens. When we scratch the itch every single time, we lose our boredom tolerance. And if you can't handle boredom, you can't handle anything difficult. Writing a book, building a business, or maintaining a deep relationship, these things require long periods of low dopamine work. If you're a stimulation junkie, you're effectively locked out of achieving greatness. Let's talk about what happens when you don't reach for your phone. When you stop focusing on an external task, your brain doesn't actually shut down. It switches to a more powerful mode called the default mode network. Think of your brain like a computer. Your executive network is like an app you're running. Maybe a heavy video editor or a spreadsheet. It's useful, but it takes up all the RAM. But when you close the apps, when you get bored, your computer starts its background maintenance. It runs updates, cleans the cache, and organizes the files on the hard drive. This is what the default mode network does. While you think you're doing nothing, your brain is working overtime on 3 vital things. First, memory consolidation. It's filing away everything you learned today so you don't forget it by tomorrow. Second, moral reasoning. It's processing your values and helping you figure out who you want to be in the world. And third, creative synthesis. This is the big one. This is where your brain takes 2 unrelated memories, something you saw 3 years ago, and a problem you have today, and smashes them together to create a light bulb moment. Have you ever wondered why your best ideas comes in the shower? It's because the shower is one of the last places on earth where we aren't looking at a screen. Your default mode network finally gets the power it needs to solve problems you have been stuck on for weeks. If you listen to a podcast in the shower and music in the car and scroll TikTok before bed, you're cancelling the maintenance. You're forcing your brain to run 24/7 without ever updating the software. This is why we feel foggy, even when we aren't busy. We are suffering from a lack of background processing. This isn't just a biological problem, it's a philosophical one. Humans have been running away from boredom for centuries, but we used to have to work much harder to do it. In the 1600s, the mathematician and philosopher Blaise Pascal wrote, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." Pascal realized that we stay busy to avoid the existential dread of being alive. When we are bored, we are forced to confront our own mortality, our own mistakes, and our own insignificance. Boredom is a mirror, and most of us don't like what we see. The philosopher Soren Kierkegaard took it a step further. He called boredom the root of all evil. Not because boredom itself is bad, but because of what people do to escape it. He argued that we become phantasts, people who live in a dream world of constant distraction, because we are too afraid to face the emptiness of our own souls. But here's the secret. The emptiness isn't a pit, it's a canvas. If you never face the void, you never learn how to fill it yourself. You just let advertisers and social media algorithms fill it for you. You become a consumer of other people's thoughts, and because you're too afraid to hear your own. Boredom saves your life because it acts as a compass. If you're bored when you're alone, it means you're in bad company. Reclaiming boredom is how you learn to become your own best friend. It's how you develop an inner life that's richer than anything on a 6-inch screen. Let's look at history. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in human history didn't come from hustling. They came from pure agonizing boredom. Take Sir Isaac Newton. In 1665, the Great Plague hit London. Newton was forced to go into quarantine at his family's farm. He had no university, no colleagues, and zero entertainment. For 18 months, he was essentially bored. Out of that boredom, he developed the theories of calculus, optics, and the law of universal gravitation. If Newton had had an iPad and a Netflix subscription, we might still be in the dark ages. Fast forward to Steve Jobs. Jobs was obsessed with nothingness. He practiced Zen meditation for years. He would spend hours sitting in a room with no furniture, just staring at the wall. Most people saw this as an eccentricity, but Jobs knew that boredom is a filter. It clears away the junk thoughts so you can see the core truth. He once said, "If you just sit and observe, you will see how restless your mind is. If you try to calm it, it only makes it worse. But over time, it does calm, and when it does, there's room to hear more subtle things." The iPhone, the very device that killed our boredom, was actually created by a man who valued boredom above all else. He used the quiet to envision a future that no one else could see because they were too busy looking at what was already there. We have developed a new way to avoid boredom called procrastivity. This is when we do busy work to avoid the deep, scary, boring work that actually matters. We check emails, reorganize our folders, we research how to be productive on YouTube. We're doing things, but we aren't creating anything. We're using creativity as a shield against the silence that deep work requires. But the even greater danger is emotional numbness. Boredom is the entry fee to your true emotions. When the noise of the world stops, your inner voice gets louder. For many of us, that voice is uncomfortable. It's a voice that says, "I'm not happy in this job," or "I'm lonely," or "I'm scared of failing." We use distraction as a drug to numb those thoughts. We use busyness as a shield. But you can't solve a problem you refuse to acknowledge. By running away from boredom, you're running away from yourself. So how do we fix this? I'm not suggesting you become a monk or move to a cabin in the woods. I'm suggesting a boredom practice. This is how you rebuild your boredom tolerance. Rule number 1. The doorway rule. Next time you walk through a doorway into your house, your office, or a coffee shop, check your hands. If your phone is in your hand, put it in your pocket. Give yourself the 30 seconds it takes to walk across the room to just be there. Observe the people. Notice the lighting. Notice your own breath. Rule number 2. The micro gaps. When you're waiting for an elevator, for a coffee, or for a red light, do not touch your phone. These are the gaps where your default mode network does its best work. If you fill them with data, you are starving your creativity. Rule number 3. The 15-minute sit. Once a week, set a timer for 15 minutes. No music, no phone. Just you and a notebook. Sit and wait. Your brain will scream. You will feel restless, but around minute 10, something magic happens. Your brain will start to generate its own entertainment. That's your creativity coming back to life. Rule number 4. The sunset rule. No screens for the last 30 minutes of your day. Let your stagehands work before you go to sleep. You will find that your dreams are more vivid and your mornings are more focused. We live in an attention economy. Your focus is a commodity. Every second you spend scrolling is profit for a company that doesn't care about your happiness or your potential. Reclaiming your boredom is an act of revolution. It is a way to tell the world, my mind is not for sale. When you allow yourself to be bored, you're giving yourself permission to be human. You're choosing the deep life over the shallow life. You're choosing to be a creator instead of just a consumer. It will be hard. You will want to shock yourself with the electric shock of a notification. Sit through it. On the other side of the discomfort is a version of you that is calmer, more creative, and more present than you have ever been in years. So, thanks for watching. If you're still here, it means you have a longer attention span than 99% of the internet. Do me a favor, don't click on another video immediately. Close this tab, turn off your screen, and just sit there for 3 minutes.